Sean Combs had everything: money, power, control over the biggest artists in hip-hop. But there was one thing he lacked, the one thing that mattered most: genuine talent and natural charisma. When someone came along who had both, someone who didn't need him, someone who made him feel small, Diddy didn't just get mad, he became dangerous. This is the story of how jealousy morphed into a weapon, how envy became an obsession, and how one man's desire to be number one might have cost two of hip-hop's brightest stars their lives. Let's be honest about who Sean Combs really was. He couldn't rap. He had no musical ability. He didn't understand production, not on a technical level. He couldn't hold a melody. He didn't know music theory. Everyone around him confirmed it. His skills were non-existent. Yet somehow he became the face of one of hip-hop's biggest labels. Why? Because he was a genius marketer, a curator. He could sell anything. But that wasn't enough for him. He wanted to be the artist. He wanted the spotlight. He wanted to be loved for his talent, not just his hustle. This created a deep psychological problem for Sean. He had built Bad Boy Records on the backs of genuinely talented artists: Biggie, Mary J. Blige, Craig Mack. These were people with raw talent, the kind you can't manufacture or buy. Every day, he watched them get the adoration he desperately craved. Every day, he was reminded that no amount of money or power could give him what they had. Naturally, one of his earliest business partners, Craig Mack, noticed the change immediately. Sean's eyes started to fill with something that could only be described as envy, not admiration. Envy that their talent was being wasted on them. He began to believe that if he had their ability, combined with his ambition and ruthlessness, he'd be unstoppable. It was a toxic cocktail of self-awareness and denial. If Sean couldn't be the most talented, he would be the most controlling. Bad Boy Records wasn't just a label, it was a trap. A financial shell game designed to keep artists dependent on him forever. Here's how it worked: you signed, you got an advance. That was the only real money you'd see up front. Then you went into the studio, except Puff owned the studio, so now you owed him for the time. He recorded a song on your track, he paid himself. He appeared in your music video, he paid himself. Every single step was designed so the artist remained in perpetual debt. An artist could go number one, have their song played across the country, but because of this financial structure, they'd never see real money. They were trapped, unable to leave, unable to build anything without Sean's blessing. It wasn't mentorship, it was exploitation. But the real control went deeper than money. Sean had a specific type of jealousy when it came to strong men around him. He couldn't handle anyone with their own identity, their own power, outside of his sphere of influence. His solution was simple: either bring them completely under his control or remove them from the picture. By the early 90s, Tupac Shakur had become the biggest star in hip-hop. He had everything Sean wanted: raw talent, authenticity, street credibility that couldn't be manufactured. He was a rapper, an actor, a poet, an ideologue. He represented something pure and dangerous, everything Sean could never be. What made it worse was that Tupac and Biggie were friends, real friends. Biggie loved Tupac, he looked up to him. And Sean saw this friendship as a direct threat to his control over Biggie. If Biggie had someone he genuinely respected and loved, someone outside of Sean's orbit, Sean's grip on him was weakening. The documentary reveals that Sean made it clear he was willing to do anything to eliminate this problem. According to a former law enforcement investigator, Sean had multiple conversations with a Harlem Street figure named Zip and a gang leader named KFD from the Southside Crips. What came out of these conversations was chilling. Sean allegedly offered money, initially $1 million, to have Tupac killed. Evidence suggests that on the night of the Mike Tyson fight in Las Vegas, when Tupac was assaulted by a gang member connected to Bad Boy, everything began to fall into place. This was the perfect opportunity. Tupac was vulnerable, angry, and separated from his usual protection. A plan was set in motion. What makes this conspiracy so deliberate is how calculated it was. Sean allegedly arranged for multiple rental cars to be driven from New York to Las Vegas by people connected to Harlem Street figures. These weren't random drivers. They were people with gang ties. One of these cars allegedly had a concealed compartment designed to hide weapons. On the night of September 7, 1996, Tupac and Suge Knight were pulled over by police for a noise violation. As they sat in traffic, they spotted a BMW pulling up alongside them. According to KFD's confession to law enforcement, the shooting was supposed to happen right there, but something went wrong. They couldn't identify Tupac clearly before the light changed. They followed the BMW through Las Vegas Boulevard. When Tupac saw Suge Knight being pulled over, he called out to him. That single shout gave away his position. The shooter saw him, leaned over, and fired multiple shots through Tupac's chest. But here's the key detail. They were supposed to kill both Tupac and Suge Knight. They only got Tupac. According to the evidence, this is why Sean only paid $500,000 of the promised $1 million. Half the job was done, half the payment was made. After Tupac's death, one might think the violence would stop. But for Sean, another problem was brewing. Biggie was starting to ask questions. Biggie was confused by the East Coast-West Coast war that Sean had essentially created and inflamed. Biggie had loved Tupac. He didn't want to be Tupac's enemy. He was starting to see through Sean's game. But Sean couldn't let Biggie have independent thoughts. So he used his oldest trick, isolation. He insisted Biggie come to Los Angeles, despite warnings from everyone around him that the West Coast was dangerous. Sean wanted to throw a party. He wanted to dominate on Death Row's turf. He wanted to prove something. Biggie didn't want to go, he was scared, but Sean pushed, Sean pressured, Sean manipulated. And on March 9, 1997, Biggie got into a car after a party and was assassinated on the streets of Los Angeles. What makes this even more damning is what happened after Biggie's death. Sean immediately took Biggie's Rolling Stone cover for himself. He was supposed to organize the biggest funeral New York had ever seen, but instead, he tried to make Biggie's estate pay for it. Even in death, Biggie was being exploited. This is what unchecked envy does. It doesn't just make you want something, it makes you want to destroy anyone who has it. Sean Combs couldn't create authentic talent, so he surrounded himself with it, then tried to own it, control it, and when that wasn't enough, eliminate it. The pattern is unmistakable across his entire career. When artists showed independence, when they had success that wasn't directly attributable to him, when they were loved for reasons beyond his influence, they became threats. And threats, in Sean's mind, needed to be neutralized. What's particularly disturbing is how the system protected him. Even after KFD confessed to law enforcement, even with evidence and testimony, Sean walked free. Why? Because he was powerful, because he had money, because the people who could testify against him were either dead, scared, or bound by street codes that prevented them from cooperating with police. The detective who worked the case was clear. If anyone's going to be held accountable for Tupac's murder, it's Sean Combs and KFD. Those are the last two men standing who can answer for what happened. And here's the thing that should terrify anyone paying attention. This pattern didn't stop with Tupac and Biggie. This was Sean's blueprint: control through financial manipulation, isolation of threats, violence when necessary, the normalization of abuse as part of the game. People speak of seeing Sean with a baseball bat, threatening business partners. They talk about witnessing him beat women. People describe a man who had convinced himself that because he had money and power, the normal rules of human decency no longer applied to him. One of his earliest employees witnessed something that set the tone for everything that followed. Sean called him into his office, where a woman was performing oral sex on him at his desk. Sean wanted him to see her face. He wanted his employee to know that this was what power looked like, the ability to make someone abase themselves on command. This wasn't just crude behavior, it was a demonstration of dominance. It was saying, I can make anyone do anything, I own people. The real horror of Sean Combs' story isn't just what he may have done to two specific men. It's what his unchecked power revealed about a system that was willing to look the other way. An industry that benefited from his success was willing to ignore the bodies piling up around him. When you combine raw ambition with genuine talent, you get innovation. But when you combine raw ambition with envy, with a need for control, with the belief that money makes you untouchable, you get a predator. Someone willing to manipulate, exploit, and kill to maintain their position at the top. The question the documentary leaves us with is whether Sean Combs had something to do with these murders. The evidence strongly suggests he did. The real question is, how many people had to die before anyone was willing to hold him accountable? And how many more victims are we willing to ignore before we fundamentally change a system that rewards power over justice? Sean Combs built an empire on the talent and backs of others, then used that empire to silence, control, and destroy anyone who threatened his supremacy. That's not success. That's a cautionary tale about what happens when ambition becomes pathological. when envy becomes homicidal, and when power is allowed to operate without consequences.